Today we're going to be looking at the history of Airbnb, which is actually kind of surprising. This popular platform has changed the way we travel, opening doors to unique experiences around the world. But behind the facade of comfort and ease lies a web of scandals, media coverage, and terrifying truths. So let's uncover what's behind the doors at Airbnb. Before we look into their dirty deeds, let's start with a brief history of Airbnb. It all began in 2008 when roommates Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia rented out air mattresses in their San Francisco apartments to make some extra cash during a conference. This idea turned out to be revolutionary as a concept connecting travelers with locals willing to rent out their homes. Airbnb quickly gained popularity, allowing people to explore new places while staying in the comforts of a home. As Airbnb grew, so did its unfortunate mishaps. One of their earliest scandals occurred in 2011 when a host home was vandalized by guests. The incident exposed how vulnerable the platform was and raised concerns about safety and security of the entire business model. Airbnb responded by implementing a host and guest verification measure, but this was just the beginning. If you're a host on Airbnb, instead of Expedia or other platforms where you just went online and booked a place when it was listed available and then check in when the day came, here you have hosts that are seeing a name and a picture of the person, and then the host gets to decide whether or not to accept or reject them. The problem is, this was a breeding ground for discrimination in the online marketplace. In 2014, Airbnb faced allegations of racial discrimination, with several hosts being accused of denying bookings based on race or ethnicity after they saw their customers' profile photos and decided to cancel their bookings. The media coverage was intense, and it brought light to the platform's lack of proper policies to prevent this type of thing. Airbnb launched a campaign to address the issue, and it put some measures in place to ward off discrimination, such as implementing anonymous user profiles and community guidelines that tried to be more inclusive. Hosts could still view a guest's name and picture, and then they got to decide whether or not to accept or reject the guest. But they beat around the bush on providing a solution. Their quote-unquote fixes ranged from bias training for hosts, which was optional, and they didn't even track who did it, to helping guests who were denied a booking because of their race and help them find somewhere else to stay. The most promising proposal was a commitment to increase the number of hosts who would accept qualified guests without looking at their profiles first. In its report, the company committed to making 1 million listings bookable via Instant Book by January 2017. Airbnb was also concerned about discrimination against the hosts themselves. Ultimately, they removed the pictures of hosts from the main search page, which meant that guests had to have one more click before they could scroll down and see the host picture. Despite their efforts to address the discrimination, Airbnb faced another setback in 2015. A horrifying incident occurred when a guest using the platform trashed a host's home during an unauthorized party. The incident is known as the One Night in Paris scandal, and it left the host devastated, drawing attention to Airbnb's potential for attracting unruly guests. This incident really highlighted the lack of protections for the host. I mean, I always thought the concept of Airbnb was strange when it first came out because you're inviting somebody into your home to sleep in your bed and use your toilets. I think that the whole concept and a strategy of building a platform centered on trust just makes sense from a basic model that you would strive for. Darkness again began to roll like a plume of black smoke haunting Airbnb. That's when he saw the light. Two small, black, rectangular boxes were stacked next to an outlet on the far side of the guest room, both facing the bed. From afar, they looked like phone chargers, but when the guest got closer, he realized that they were cameras, and they were recording. In 2017, reports began to flood in regarding complaints of hidden cameras found in Airbnbs. Guests discovered hidden cameras, naturally raising concerns about invasion of privacy and personal safety. Ultimately, it cast a wide net of doubt on Airbnb's methods for keeping its patrons safe. Airbnb obviously condemned such actions and simply pointed out the challenges of monitoring millions of listings worldwide. Basically, they said, look, we make a ton of money and it's kind of hard to keep everyone safe and make money too. In emails reviewed by The Atlantic, Airbnb told the customer that the company is taking his case extremely seriously and that guest safety is its top priority. But the customer told the reporter he felt Airbnb treated him like a frustrated guest and not like the victim of a crime. And a crime it was. In recent years, media coverage of Airbnb has centered around the impact it has had on the local housing markets. Critics argue that the advent of Airbnb has led to a rise of rental prices and reducing the availability of housing in popular areas, especially in tourist cities. Some cities have even been forced to make regulations to control the growth of short-term rentals. While Airbnb has made efforts to cooperate with local authorities, the battle between the platform and city governments continues, leaving both hosts and travelers in the crossfire. Apart from the scandals and media controversies, there are some terrifying simple truths related to staying at an Airbnb. One such truth is the risk of staying in an unfamiliar place. While Airbnb does provide user reviews and ratings, they don't guarantee a visitor's safety. They also don't have any system in place to make sure that hosts accurately represent the conditions of the property. There have been plenty of reports of unclean or hazardous properties, leaving guests in uncomfortable and even dangerous situations. Another terrifying aspect is the presence of fraudulent listings. Some people straight up scam and exploit the platform, creating fake listings for properties that don't exist or don't even belong to them. Naturally, guests have fallen victim to scams, losing their money or even worse, arriving at properties that don't even exist. Airbnb has taken measures to combat these activities, but risk cannot be 100% eliminated. Just imagine if you went to their website, booked a house, and showed up. You finally arrive and suddenly have a pit in your stomach as you pull up to your vacation home and see that it looks like nothing on the listing. The neighborhood is super sketch and you don't feel safe at all. You walk in and you don't know who cleaned it or how well it was even cleaned, who stayed there before, or if there are any hidden cameras, or if the lock code was even changed from the last guest. Is it really safe? Now don't get me wrong, many travelers have had memorable stays through the platform, including myself. I've discovered hidden gems that I would have otherwise never seen. From its inception in 2008, worth $20 billion, to today, where it's worth $80 billion. It's safe to say they are doing something right. But do they value profit over safety? Only time will tell. So far, they've done a good job, but one hidden camera is just one too many. Thanks for watching.